country roads take me home.
Mr. Trump, will you apologize about January 6th?
An Olympian called Gwen caused some controversy at the U.S. Olympic trials when she turned her back while the national anthem was being played.
But more importantly, we need to start being better examples to these children. All these kids that are going to be tuning into the Olympics right now. We have a spiritual battle going on right now in this nation where we have forces of evil dividing us with critical race theory and all of these hate messages going out. We need to stop it, and the Olympics is a time for unity, and that's the only thing that it needs to represent in the name of Jesus.
She's basically doing her patriotic duty by saying, I am making a point here. That's all she's doing.
Well, one of the days in the upcoming days, we'll play you the American anthem and let you see what you think of it, because there's some stuff in there that makes it a little bit tough to take.
Gwen Barry, you do not represent me as a black American. As an American. How dare you? You entitled piece of you privilege. You talk about white privilege. This is black privilege used in a worse way.
Almost impossible in such a fallen world, and especially a country as constitutionally gay and ghastly as America. I'm amazed that anyone's heterosexual in America. I mean, this is the gayest country in the world.
I just want to be clear with you. It's okay for a man to go into the women's section, show his penis around the other women, young little girls underage. Your spa, we spa, condone that. Is that what you're saying? What sexual orientation? I see a dick. It lets me know he's a man. He's a man. He is a man. He is not no female. He is not a female. He is not a female.
Are you talking about a transgender person?
There's no such thing as transgender. He has a dick. Okay? He has a penis. His penis is hanging out. Okay, no, I'm not one. Actually, I'm a woman who knows how to stand up and speak up for my right. As a woman, I have a right to feel comfortable without a man exposing himself, okay?
Washington Post writer advocates for children to be exposed to kink at parades, igniting a tidal wave of resistance, sick, deviant, and evil. So the article is right here. Yes, kink belongs at I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to keep my words in line. This is on Washington Post right now. And the title is Yes, Kink Belongs at Pride, and I want my kids to see it. Maybe we need another crusade, man.
was not one day somebody woke up and said, we should control speech. Give me a quick rundown.
The really condensed version.
Yeah.
Goes back to Marx. I know it's become cliche for conservatives to blame Marx for everything.
He's
but you
to
know
blame
what?
for everything.
He is to be is. Yes, he was responsible for a lot of bad things. He has a line that he writes to Arnold Ruge, which is, he calls for the ruthless criticism of all that exists. And so he just wants to tear down everything, right? Marx fails. The revolution doesn't materialize. Turns out the oppressed masses don't really like his kooky theories. And so his intellectual heirs, men like Antonio Gramsci, communist in Italy, he realizes the revolution can't succeed unless the revolutionaries have some grip on the common sense. It won't succeed unless the radicals have cultural hegemony. He calls for a war of position. And not a war of maneuver, you advance and retreat, but a war of position where you take positions of power and then wield that power once you've got it. Even if your numbers are smaller, you can still wield disproportionate power. The Frankfurt School develops some of these ideas. Critical theory comes out of this. Critical race theory is a derivation of that. You see one Frankfurt School theorist in particular, Herbert Marcuse, rises up in the 1960s as the father of the New Left, the student radicals. He has an infamous essay, Repressive Tolerance, which says that you can't tolerate intolerance, and so what we've got to do is basically censor all the conservatives and encourage speech from the left. The student radicals read Gramsci through the lens of Mao. Mao becomes very important at this time with the translation of the Little Red Book. They come up with this phrase, Rudi Dutschke in particular comes up with this phrase, the long march through the institutions, and they start to march. The feminists in the 1970s really developed this, particularly the Marxist idea of false consciousness, the idea that the reason you're so happy, poor oppressed masses, is that you don't know how oppressed you are. So the radical women groups in New York would hold what I call wine and cheese soirees, W-H-I-N-E. And so these happy bourgeois housewives would come in, and they'd leave miserable because they would be awakened to their misery. And it comes from this idea in an essay by Carol Hanisch that the personal is political. All the settled things in our private life, they actually ought to be open to public and political scrutiny. Now we say, why is everything so political? Why is the NFL political? Why are running shoes political? Well, they used to be settled because we all agreed on it. It just wasn't up for debate. Then what these radicals did in the 70s was they opened everything up to debate. The personal became the political, and now we're trying to win that political battle so they can be personal again and no longer debated over. It really explodes on campus in the 80s. Obviously, the university has always been an incubator of these ideas. You had the campus battles, hey, hey, ho, ho, Western Civ has got to go, as Jesse Jackson said at Stanford. Then PC really explodes on the public stage in the 1990s, a little bit of backlash in the 2000s. Then you have the advent of big tech. Big tech starts to exert real censorship. I mean, they just censored the duly elected sitting president on January 7th and 8th. Handful of oligarchs controlling speech in a republic. It's a really dangerous situation. And then you have the advent of cancel culture, which is just a form of ostracism and censorship along leftist ideological lines. I'm not saying no one has ever been ostracized. I'm not saying no one's ever been censored. In the 50s, you got censored and ostracized if you were a communist. Today, you get censored and ostracized if you're not a communist. The fact of it hasn't changed. It's just the standards by which you are ostracized or censored. That is what has changed, and that takes us to today.
The Supreme Court dealt another violent blow against democracy by upholding 2 restrictive Arizona voting laws, forbidding the collection of absentee ballots by anyone other than family or caregivers, and allowing the tossing of ballots inadvertently cast in the wrong precinct.
To drop out some of the legal jargon here, Alito's standard is basically, as long as you don't say the N-word when you are taking away people's votes, it is fine. That is the essential takeaway from his opinion. That racism just wasn't enough. Wasn't enough racism to trigger the Voting Rights Act. It must be nice to have a job where you can tell other people how much racism is real. But that's the decision. That's the upshot here. As long as you don't make it completely obvious that you're doing something with bigotry in your heart, as if that was easy to prove, then Alito is going to let you do it.
But it's not just political protesters the government is spying on. Yesterday, we heard from a whistleblower within the U.S. government who reached out to warn us that the NSA, the National Security Agency, is monitoring our electronic communications and is planning to leak them in an attempt to take this show off the air.
You're going to see these individual types of blips. It's almost like it's going to be 2 Americas.
If you like this video, press like. If you love it, subscribe.